Let's get a start demo first of that multi-container along with .NET Core Web API and MySQL Server, right? So see here, see, I just created another Web API application. It is called a microservice, which is interact with our MySQL, MySQL database, and also those are those things actually running in our Docker container, right? So our API also is running in the Docker container, and our database MySQL server is also running in the Docker container. So let me try to see as of now I can get that data which is running in our Docker container, MySQL server Docker container, right? And also if I add something data, for example, let me add something. So see, ID number 6 is created, right? And if I try to get, so that also I can able to see the data. And if I open the Docker, see, this time I have multiple containers. For example, this is my API, this is my microservice, student microservice, as well as this is my uh, this is my MySQL server database, right? So that actually interact with this guy, right? This is interacting with this guy, API interacting the database. So that we will implement here. And also if I want to connect the DB, MySQL server DB, using that my MySQL workbench or any tools, if you want to connect your MySQL DB using that Docker container, so you can just also just try to get, see, whatever just newly data we have added, I am getting over here. See, this is a new data, right? So that things we will implement. And so let's get start implementation. So before implementation, I'm especially recommend go to my channel .NET Real World Example. Here I already actually creating another session which is the same series of multi-container using SQL Server. So you have to watch that one first because I am continue that guy, right? So you have to go watch that one. And now moving start to implementation. So what I can do, I will take same example. So this is my same example, right, which I've already creating one normal web API, means another microservice using that SQL Server database, right? So now let's get start. So what I will do, so, I have to just create a new API, or we call a microservice. It is another microservice. Let me call a new project over here, add web API, right? Next, and then call it to over here student, right? And then next, and just change it to our project location. That is fine. Next, just remove that https things, and rest of things is remaining will be same. And now our API is creating, right? And here we have to actually we have to interact this API. This API we have to interact with the MySQL server. So what I need to do, first of all, actually I just creating something. I have to just create a few things over here. For example, I just creating a database. So let me create a data folder, and let me create a DB context over here. Create DB context, so it could be a student context. And once you create a student DB context, what I will do here, just we have to record some package, right? So if I trying to implement MySQL, so those MySQL package we record. So let me add some package first. So first of all, I will record entity framework package. So let me add that Microsoft entity framework package, and this is that one first. So once I add this MySQL package, right, this is done. Now second package would be our MySQL. So let me add that guy also. MySQL entity framework, .NET entity framework.core. Let me add that guy also. So that's also done. Now this two package is required. So once you done your two package, go to your DB context again and let me implement again. So what I will do, simply I already implement everything, so I will not going to again the details. So let me quickly add DB context, and this in this DB context we have to just create a constructor, and here we have to just create a DB context option and use that DB context these things, and then create a variable and use that base constructor, and then use that guy and remove these things quickly and bring back that line so that we can able to see easily. And then we have to create one entity, so let me quickly create another entity for that. There's a one reason actually I am just creating separate microservice, because I have to create another things actually for gateway. So for that gateway example we required multiple things and multiple API or multiple microservice, so that's why I have just creating inside this here. So yeah, create a new entity here. Let me create a student, and this student, let me create a few student over here, right? Miss few property over there. Let me create this guy, and then we have a student property like name, class and section. That is fine. And then go back to here, and what I will do, simply I have to just create a DB set. Let me create a DB set for that. So this is fine. Let me bring back that student class. Okay, so this is a student, right? And then we have to make a class name should be Pascal case, so that is fine. Let me go back and change it to the Pascal case, right? Yeah, that is fine. And then student, and what I need to do next, simply I have to just create a one overload method that is called on model creation. So let me create that guy, and we can keep it as a now default, but yeah, we can implement something if required further. So yeah, this is DB context class has been created. Now moving forward to next, right, we have to use this guy to generate our DB and all, right? So now go to your program.cs file here. Okay, and here we have to just register the DB context, right? So what I can do, simply let me use builder dot services dot add MySQL. See that MySQL here, and then whatever our DB context name, use that DB context name, and this DB context name here we can add here. Now it's asking to connection string, so let me add that connection string over here, right? And then first let me get connection string over here. So where I can get the connection string, I can get the connection string using it configuration get connection string, and here let me add my connection string inside this application.json file like connection string, and here we can add my SQL DB, right? And here we can add my SQL DB connection. But yeah, as of now I'll just keep it empty. Go back to here, let me change this name like MySQL DB and use this guy. This is a MySQL DB, right? MySQL DB. Copy this, change it to over here, and bring back that student namespace. So this is done, right? So this is way we can just we have to register our DB context, right? And this is done. And one more thing, one few things actually we have to do that over here while start up our application. So it should be create a some database, and those are tables whatever we have in this here, right? So that should be created. So that for that what I can do, I can just create simply extension method, extension, and inside this extension method I will just one extension method which already we have covered actually in my last multi container series. So same things we have to doing over here, but only difference is here that session we use SQL server, but yeah, in this session we'll use that MySQL server. So yeah, a few things we have to taken care over here. At first we have to just create static class, and then also we have to create another method over here, extension method. Let me create that static void create a db if not exist, and use that I host extension method. And here what I can do, simply uh, let me bring back some services. Like, okay, we have to create that scope, and then scope just getting that services, and in this service we have to get that our db context, right? So what is my db context? My db context is student db context, right? And change it to that student db context. And then further what I need to do over here, I have to just create a try block so that any exception we can catch it over here, right? Whatever we performance over here. So let me add this guy, and here uh, we have to get once data provider. So like that, let me add this guy, okay, and change it to this. So what I'm trying to do over here, simply whatever db context get a service, and this is I database creator. So in this I database creator, actually it will make sure, like, okay, is our db has been created or not. So they will actually make sure. So first let me check over here. So if it is not null, you know if it is not null, then we have to further proceed, right? So yeah, if it is not null, then we have to do what we are trying to do. Simply uh, i have to I have to one another check inside this. Okay, if database can create it, it is not created, then we have to just create and try to get that logs. Okay, so let me add this log as well, like, so that we can easily uh, get that logs if is anything is wrong, right? So let me add that log service. So this is my log service. So service get record ilogger, and just get that logger instance, and using that logger instance we can get that logs, we can write that logs actually. So yeah, that is done. And then first just check the database. If it is database not exist, then database is created. Then another things actually we can try over here. if if a table also, whatever table in this data created, right, database created, so those table if it is not created, so let me create table also for me. Okay, so like that we can do that. And one last thing actually we have to do, once they have to complete everything, we will just create some seed data. For example, initial level I want to add some data, right? So that actually we have to forcefully tell, okay, so you have to just create me some seed data. So this is a seed data concept. So as of now we don't have a seed data class. So let me create this class over here inside the data, uh, inside the data folder. Let me create that seed data, add this guy, and in this guy what I will do, I have to just create make it that static again, and then make it this guy. For example, let me copy that because this is a normal thing, so I am not going to that again. So yeah, see again, I just create another extension method, or just a method, static method. They will accept that student data context, and a student data context actually they will check if it is we have a data or not, student data or not. If it is if does not have, then it will move to further. If it is have, so it will return directly over here. And just I have just created a few sample data for here, like for the student, and then simply I add to over here and save it to that. So it is simple just is seeding the data. So now go back to here, and that's it, right? So now see, this is also done. And now finally what I can do, I can just write a log if any exception over here. So I can write that log over here. So that's it, right? Let me formatting. So this is done, implementation of starting db context, right? Create if it is not exist, those things also we have to do over here, right? So before run this app, what I will do, simply I just call that, if create if it is database is exist or not, right? So this extension method we have to call. That's it. So these two configuration you have to take in care. First your db context class, and if it is data exist or not, right? And then last things we have to do, that app setting, right? So this app setting configuration we have to take in care. So how we can set that app setting context over here, it is very much similar what we have done for SQL Server, right? Yeah, so what I can do, simply I have to use that, server, and in server we have to record, our container name. So as of now I don't have a container, I haven't not create a container, but yeah, I will create this container name. Okay, so I'll just keep it that container name for this, but yeah, I will keep create. And also whatever the db you want to create, I just create, the database. So this database I want to create, for example, I want to create this demo, right? Demo database. And then further we required one port, right, for that MySQL. So what would be the port? Default port would be of MySQL actually 3306, right? This is important, actually you have to focus on in this time. And then user, what would be the user? So user would be our root user, because MySQL always taking a root user, uh, root, right? And then we have required some password, right? So we have to add then password, and my password would be, for example, my default password. I can, whatever the password you can just add over here, like see, this is a password. So this is a connection string of that SQL server which will interact in our um, docker container, right? So as of now we don't have anything, right? So don't worry about that, let me create now. So before create, you know before create that, what I will do, I have to add, some docker file in this microservice. So first what I can do, simply right click on that project, add, and then use this container creator supports, click on that, add, and then okay. So yeah, one issue actually here, which you observe, like if you trying to add, there's some issue, right? So see, if you're trying to add, so it is clearly saying like, okay, whatever higher, docker compose solution must be located at the higher folder than the target file, right? So what that means, if you go back here, if you go to that, right click on that solution and go to open that folder, right? Now see what I'm trying, what I have done. So whatever actually new project I have created, that is actually created outside of there, right? Not in the solution folder, right? So that is a problem. So what I can do, I have just to get that where actually created that one. Let me check first. So see, it is just created inside this another folder, right? So that I have to take in care from here. So let me cut from there, right? And go to here and just simply paste it over here. Okay, so once you paste over here and close that, now it should be fine. And one more thing, actually we have to take in care that solution file also. So if you go back to here, and this solution file reference also, it's not right, so that also we have to take in care. So let me fix that also. See, this is our project solution. So it should not be, some root folder, right? So it should be simply remove that things. Okay, this is my mistake actually. We have just created another this uh, this project, we have to create another folder, that's why they are creating. But yeah, before you creating, just make sure you have to create your folder inside this root folder, right? So let me close that and go back to your Visual Studio. Now just reload, save. Now close that, and now it should be fine, right? So let me add one more time here, add. So now this time see appearing that Linux container. So once I add, container is Docker file is ready, right, for this here. And also if you see compose file, they should be add that one, right? See, they also added this guy. Yeah, but one issue, see, the formatting issue. So what I will do, let me fix that issue like that, right? See, one more space actually added, so that I have fixed. And let me build so that we can make sure, okay, everything is built completely. Now see, build is succeed, right? So go back to here, and now our API, actually API container is ready. But yeah, my SQL server is container is missing, right? So let me create that SQL server. Let me collapse first everything, right? And here what I will do, I will just create a MySQL container. So let me create that MySQL container, and then what I will do inside here, now see, we have to create one image, right? So how we can find that, okay, what is that image of MySQL container? So that actually you have to check, uh, Docker Hub official website. If you go to this website, dockerhub.com, and that MySQL, see, they actually they support those those tag. Like see, if you using that MySQL, and in this MySQL they using that 8.30 and this and all, right? So MySQL is a image, the main image is MySQL, and after that if we want to whatever tags, so you can use it that guy. So this is actually uh links, actually you can just take it over here. And also one more, so if you click any of tags, so now see, I'm just clicking on this guy, and if you go down, see, they also MySQL server expose in these ports, like see, 3006 or 30060, right? These two port they expose, so that's why we using 3006, right? So these three things actually you have taken care, and you can also analyze over here. And also see, the image name is MySQL, right? So that's why we're using the MySQL image, and they are after that that image. It is slightly different for um, normal database, so that's why I'm just explaining over here, right? So yeah, once it's done, go back to here, right? So let me add this guy, right? And then once I add this guy, and also let me fix this guy. Okay, so once I add, what I will do next I have to add that container name. So my container name would be like this, MySQL container. And then we have to use same network, right? So whatever we network we have to create it over here, right? So same network we have to require. So let me add that network, right? So that everything will run in the same common network. And then we required environment password, right? So let me add that password. Let me add the password. Yeah, so using that environment, inside that you have to use MySQL root password, and using that whatever password you want, right? So I have just add whatever password I just added. And then what I can do, I have to require some port, right? So let me add the port over here. So see, I just expose the port 8003, but yeah, I'll just, the container port would be 3306, right? And then finally I will use one volume, right? So that our data can persist, right? So let me add that data persistence over here. And as of now I don't have as a volume, this volume, so let me create quickly, because previously I have just create for this volume for SQL server. So now I will use that MySQL and just create this volume inside that, under the volume, and use that volume over here. So that is fine for this you know MySQL container. So this is a setting, or this is a configuration actually, or this is a script actually, we can say, to create a container, MySQL container in the Docker, right? This is a very pretty much simple. And one more issue actually here that I will explain, but yeah, first let me create that everything and then we'll explain. Okay. And one more thing actually we have to do, see, this database actually dependent on this student API, right? So that I will just create it. A few modification we have to do over here, as like we have done, right? So what I can do over here, so first I will just create a container name. So let me create a container name over here. Let me create the formatting. So yeah, this is my container name, and then image is fine, build also is fine, and then we have to create a port. So let me create another port for this, right? So let me create that port. Yeah, port would be a 8004 and should be 880, and then dependent on, right? So let me create a dependent on, because this data is dependent here, right? So let me create dependent on, and the dependent on which service actually dependent is container is a dependent over here, right? So let me copy this guy and paste it over here, right? Now see, this is a dependent service, and once it's done, and also we have to use same network for this API as well. So let me create that network. Okay, so yeah, this is also done, right? So now we are good to go. So once it's done, what I need to do, I have to run this application, right? So what I can do, yeah, before I actually do that, actually we have to miss something. So in this controller I have not using in our DB interactivity and all, right? So that we can do, yeah, that we can do in later, once our application is running perfectly, right? So what I can do, simply there's a two-way we can run. Either you can run using that Docker Compose, right? So let me first run in this using the Docker Compose. So let me set this guy as a starting project as a Docker, and then run. Now see, your application, everything is running perfectly. The four container is running. This is a new API container, and this is a MySQL container, and also it is running for that my web application, and similar things I have to check for my uh, student API, right? So let me check that student API also is running or not. Yeah, that student API is not running. There's some issue, that's why it's not running. Let me fix it and go to that student here. See, uh, there's a one issue actually, that MySQL container is running, but yeah, it is not interacted over here. That is a one problem. And second problem is here, see, it is running 800 container, right? So this is this should not be get over in our local machine. That's why it's a problem. So what I can do in this case, minimize that, go to your Docker files and Docker Compose file. If you go to that Docker Compose YAML file, uh, you are able to see it will just create it, another student service, right? And here they actually prepare actually 800. So what I can do, simply change to 80, because everything should be run on 80 port, right? So let me save it. One changes you have to do in our Docker Compose override file, and then second changes you have to do that in Docker file. So go to that Docker file. Already it is just by mistake we have to add 880. This is a by default, yeah, that we have to change, and then we have to good to go. So what I can do, simply run one more time. First let me fix that, right? And yeah, that also fine. If you go back to your container, so yeah, this is running fine. Now check our student API, or this is student microservice which is host running in this. Yeah, now see, our student microservice also running perfectly, right? But yeah, as of now we don't have any interactivity of that MySQL service, right? So let me close that and I'll show you. Actually there's a one issue. So once I interact with that, that I actually we are able to show you what is the issue. So let me create a new controller, open or create a new API empty controller and name it that student controller. And here what I can do, simply I have to add I have to just inject our db context. So my db context would be a student db context. So let me add this guy, student db context, or let me copy the same name. uh, where is the db context? So go back to here. So this is my db context name, copy this guy, go back to here, edit this guy, make it this and inject it in this here, so that I can use that whatever here. Yeah, so first you have to just inject it and then just create a one method endpoint. Okay, and this is my endpoint. Simply I just create I action and get result, and student return that all the students, and then return back to here. Similar, I just have to create, I have to just expose another endpoint which will just simply whatever student we can uh, add this in our db, right? This two endpoint we have to just to expose, and let me run. Now it is running perfectly. Now check all the container is running perfectly. Yes, all the container is running perfectly. If you click this guy, so yeah, see, now executing happening, right? Student API executing happening, and also it is just create a db, and whatever the seed data they also just create it, right? So if I okay, yeah, before, okay, first just check in via the API, right? So let me copy this, and what is my student API port? My student port 8004. So now see, is running, and if I trying to get that execute, now see I am getting that data, right? And also if I want to execute some data, right? See, execute. Now if I execute, now see what are data over here, right? And similar things we can just try to connect using that, MySQL workbench, right? So let me connect that, right? So let me connect this guy, and okay, let me connect to from the starting, because it is already connected, right? So let me create a new, and here how you can connect, so that is important. Like if you want to connect your docker container MySQL db, how in from that my work branch or any others studio, right? So how we can connect, so this is the things. So what you can do, go to your connection string or just go to your docker file, because here I just configure everything, right? So see, in this docker file, your container name, right? So this is your container name. So what you can do, you can just connection name would be your container name, right? So add that container name, and here just keep it host name whatever, this is fine. And also you can change it local host, there's no issue. And here see, as of now I have not changed anything. Okay, so let me keep it this guy, and root is this guy. Okay, and let me try to uh, test. So once I test, it will asking me, okay, let me add password as well. So let me add password, and password would be this guy. So go back to here, pass the password, okay, and test. Now see, it is a problem, right? Because see, there's a everything is good, but one thing I'm missing. So the port number. So if you go back to here, what is the port? My port, whatever, actually container running on this one, but yeah, the database running in this port. So let me copy this port and go back to here and change the port. That's it. So let me change this port, and Now this time check. Now see, successfully made, right? So let me, okay. Yeah, it's saying already exists, so that's why it's creating a problem. So yeah, like that way actually, see, like this way actually you can just use it. Or let me remove this guy if we can remove it. Yeah, delete connection, right? So let me delete and let me do that again so that you can see how we can do that. Okay, copy this container name, right, and go back to here and change the container name over here. And then port name also you have to change. So what would be my port is 8003. Change the port name. And then root password, root username is root, that is fine. And the password would be this guy, whatever we set, right? So let me set this guy, okay, and then okay. So now see, finally is connected. And continue. Now you are able to see same db, whatever db we have to create it, right? So if you see, I just creating a db. If I connection string, go to my connection string, so I just create this db, right? Demo db, right? So this is same demo db. And if I want to see the records, so now see, whatever newly record, whatever record we have to create it, those are things is over there, right? So let me zoom in. Yeah, those are db data is there. And also it is persist. So once I remove that container, right, so it should not be gone, right? It should be keep it. So what I can do simply, let me stop that application. I'll show you in example. So let me stop that and then remove the container, all the container. And once I remove all the container also, that make sure remove all the images, right, except this MySQL and SQL Server image, because it will take some time to download again. So remove that all the other images, right? So all the images has been removed, right? And then what I will do, simply run again on Docker container. Now our application is running. Let me check in Docker container. Yeah, so all the container is running perfectly. There is no issue. And if you go to here, see, so it is running, but this time it is not creating any db because it already is existed db, right? And if you see, let me change and call to this guy 4, right? This 4, yeah, student db. And once I try to execute, so see, whatever old data, right, so that also we are getting without loss our data. We can keep our data, right? So this is a data persisting things we already covered my one of the session, last session. So you can check out how can persist data in the sql server, in the docker container. So yeah, like this way actually we can do. But yeah, one issue actually here, so that is not occurring. But yeah, that issue is I face in my last time. So what was the issue? So see, if you go to your docker compose file, go to that docker compose file. Yeah, that we can actually replicate using not running in this docker things, that we can run from that command line, right? So let me run this thing is via the command line. So open that explorer, right? Where is our data? And let me open a command prompt. And this is my command prompt. And what I will do, simply again I have to just delete all the container. And here, so what I will do, simply docker compose up and detach. So let me run this multi container using that command line and see. Okay, now the all the services has got started, right? And let me check here. So all the services also got started. And if you go to that student, now see, there is a one problem, right? See, uh, actually it is a dependent MySQL server, right? So that MySQL server is not running up first before running our this container. So there's a that issue actually. While this issue actually we are facing, not directly running while the using the docker compose or Docker project. But yeah, once you use the command line, so definitely this issue will persist. And here the problem, if you see that a database does not exist like that, or while issue is trying to connect that one, and once everything is completed, so this API will fail. And let me show you like what that means. So if you go back to here, your application, and refresh, right, and once you refresh, you're trying to get, see, you are getting this issue, right, because your MySQL container is not running up properly while trying to connect this API. So how we can fix that issue? So that issue actually we can fix easily. There's a no complex things. So what I can do for that, so for this, go to again that docker file, docker compose file. Here there is a concept actually, whatever dependent service that should first run, and then uh, this will run, that order processing, right? So that things actually we have to fix that. So how we can do that? So first I will do that for here, like this is MySQL container, and here I will add one health check. So let me add one health check here, and let me add this guy to end. So they see, I just created one health check for this server MySQL server container like this. Okay, so what it will does, so at the health check test cmd MySQL admin ping, and local host, so they will try to host and check, okay, it is properly running or not. If it is not running, so they will just retry mechanism here. They will retry till 20 seconds, right? So like this way you just put one setting over here in MySQL container. And then one more things you have to do, that whatever dependent service, right, so that also you have to make sure, like once your dependent service is properly run, then it should be run, right? So that things also you have to make sure here inside this dependent, right? So what you can do after here, right? So let me remove that guy, and here uh, MySQL container you can just use like this. And then after that, what you can do, you have to add one condition. So this is that conditions, and in this condition I have to check, okay, service is healthy or not. So that two things actually you have to take in care. So once it's done, now always actually see this service will not up and run once it's completely not healthy of this our MySQL server container, right? So that is actually very important part. So what I will do, see, again let me remove uh, this guy, all the container, let me remove again, and just try to run again. Now see what happening. Two service got started, but again another two is actually, one is waiting, MySQL server is waiting, and that student API also is created, but it is not started, because once it's not completed MySQL server container, it will keep in that place, right? So that is a VOT actually. So see, it's taking some time. That's why in last time it's failed. But yeah, we are good to know. Now see, it is saying also it is healthy, right? So my SQL server container is healthy, and then it is get started our student service. Now go back to your container here. Let me check. Now see, this time perfectly it's creating. There is a no issue, right? And there is a no issue, right? And let me check here also. Like let me check. Now we got the data, right? There's a no issue, and also we are able to get that we can add some data. For example, let me add few data in this MySQL server, and now we have a data, right? And also we can check here. Now see whatever data we added over here, and same things we can check our other service, other also over here, right? There's no issue. And one more thing we have to check, like that persistent one, right? So let me check one more time, data persists or not. Let me remove one more time our container here, remove that container. Once I remove that container, it should be data persist. Let me check. Okay, so yeah, once I remove the container, data will be not there because our container is down, right? So let me run first our container. So and this is the command. Let me run again. Now finally see, uh, my service got healthy, like our container is healthy, MySQL container healthy. Once I healthy, it just started our things, right? And let me check quickly over here. Yeah, it's perfectly fine, there's a no issue. Let me check this. Let me check our database, right? So once I get the data, see whatever the old data that also persisted, right? Let me check here as well. SQL server, MySQL bunch. So yeah, data is there. So that's all for this session, right? And one more thing, actually, we have to do that. We just push these changes in the source code so that you can just use for your learning perspective, right? So let me add that. So yeah, this is that name, right? You can use it. Web API, MySQL DB, Docker container, multiple Docker container, right? So let me create and push. So yeah, you can check out this one in my GitHub links. So yeah, that's all for this session. Thank you. Have a nice day, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share.